Okay, so we're recording. So thank y'all so much for coming today. I am very excited. But we know our first order of business. We need to figure out what is behind Andrew and Daniel. Okay. So every week, Andrew and Daniel usually are somewhere different. Usually it's a library or some kind of famous book place. So I'm trying to,
Today's is a library,
Today's
and
is
it
a library.
and
Okay.
it kind of fits the theme today.
Okay. Um, so this is someplace local, maybe?
Is it
Yeah,
local as in Georgia or local as in?
local as in Fulton County.
Oh,
Oh. Um,
Fulton County.
Fulton County.
I know Roswell has a very strong ghost presence around this time of year.
Well, I was thinking more local history, not as much ghosts. But
Oh,
Local history.
I don't know if this place is haunted, but
Could be. Um, I've done internships at a couple places in Fulton County, but I don't know if they. You might be stumping us on this one. I don't know.
Is it
it's
a university?
no, and it's no longer there. It was
Oh,
torn down,
it's
Oh,
torn down.
1977.
fascinating. You're stumping us all. How
I know, you
embarrassing.
might have to tell us this one.
Well, I actually got a picture of the outside to help. This is the Carnegie Library in Atlanta, built in 1902.
Oh,
Very
wow.
cool. Wow. That was a good one.
That's
Very
awesome.
educational.
Yeah,
You
that's a
stumped
good
the
one.
committee. You stumped us all. That's great.
Glad to hear it.
Yes, thank you so much. That was a really, really good one. Thank you so much, Andrew. Okay, so I know we started late, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Yeah, okay. Hi, Jack. So sorry for the complications. So good to see y'all.
I'm gonna mute because we have a problem here.
Okay, no problem. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to have Kelly begin with her presentation, and then we're going to have Maggie and Elaine present as well. So anyway, okay, so Kelly, would you like to take it away?
Yes, absolutely. So, like Joanne said, my name is Kelly and I work for the Special Projects Unit in MARB. And so what we do is exhibits for KSU and also outside organizations, local community organizations like historical societies, schools, towns, and that kind of thing. And so I'm a researcher on the team, and so I go out and try to get the information. And so I've found these local regional books to be extremely helpful in trying to get the local information. And so I thought I'd go over a couple books that were helpful in some of the exhibits that we did, and then kind of end up with my favorites and a little spooky story. So I'll kind of speed through the first part in the interest of time, but I'll go ahead and share my screen. The first couple books that I have are digital, so I don't actually have them in hand. Let's see. All right, can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay, so I love local books because they have information that you can't find anywhere else, a lot of personalized information. A lot of these books are being produced by these local organizations or individuals, and so they have great descriptions. Sometimes the information to me just makes me chuckle. It's like, okay, they think, they produce what they think is important. For instance, on the right here, we now know that Miss Ruth Wynn was the first lunchroom manager at Atwood Schools. Like, just little information like that, you really can't find anywhere else. Now, the downside to some of these local books, as you might guess, they're hard to come by. A lot of times they've been printed by their historical society, and then over the years they stop printing them. So they're hard to come by, expensive if you can find them. And then a lot of times, even though the information is fabulous, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on, a lot of times it's not backed up. So there's not references or bibliography. So even though it's wonderful, it can't be your end all be all source, but it's a good jumping off point for further research. Okay, so with that in mind, on the right bottom, we're doing a new exhibit on the Dixie Highway for Atwood. And so using this book, I found 2 early automobile owners, which is interesting. And then at the very bottom, the Grogan's tourist cottages, which are, forerunners of like your motels or hotels that were along the Dixie Highway. So we know that there was a tourist cottage along the Dixie Highway in Ackworth. And so using that information, I just tried to get a little bit more information, and I found that service station in an advertisement. And then also on our KSU store, I found a picture of the service station with the owners. That was really cool. And then the tourist cottages were across the street. Another exhibit that we're working on is the Marietta City Schools. And anytime I would talk to anybody in Marietta about the city schools, asking them, where's the best place to get information, or do you know about this? And everyone would always reference this book. And so it was really important to everybody in the community. If you want to know history about the school system, everybody talked about this book. And Archives, KSU Archives actually has a copy of this book. And it's pretty interesting because it shows you what the school system thought was interesting to highlight in their history. It's got a timeline, which is really good for dates and things. But once again, there's no references, so we don't know where they got this information. But, we can use that information and try to follow up with that. Okay, so this is my favorite book here. The nice big doorstop. Pickens County Historical Society wrote this book or collected the stories to make this book. And we did an exhibit in Pickens County on a cabin. And actually it's a multi-phase exhibit, but this cabin is the Kirby Quinton cabin. And so one of our panels was about Tom Quinton, who was the second name in that title. So who is Tom Quinn? I mean, you can't really go out into the library and find a book about Tom Quinton because it's such a unique local perspective. But lo and behold, Tom Quinton was in the family section of this book. So the first section of this book is more like history of the region, and the second half are family portrayals, often submitted by the family. And so this is a really great description of Tom. So I'm just going to read a paragraph so you can kind of get an idea about the wonderful descriptions that can exist in these books. So Tom Quinton, he helped start the Tater Patch Players, Arts and Crafts Club, Historical Society. He was an artist, storyteller, and craftsman. He gave himself to anybody who called on him. He collected antiques and studied the history of our area, so he was able to teach many of the ways of long ago, and thus these things can be carried on. He was very friendly and enjoyed entertaining college presidents or local backwoods whiskey makers. He loved cooking and he loved eating. At one time, his weight was over 500 pounds. He was one of the few people who lived every day as though it might be his last. He lived life to the fullest. Almost anybody who went to school with him has an interesting Mr. Quinton story. 17 years after his death, he is spoken of almost daily in our county. Just wonderful things. So that was a good jumping off point for that. Jasper in Pickens County also has lots of ghost stories. Just the old jail, they say, is haunted. The old Tate Depot is haunted. It was a big marble producing company, so there were lots of accidents. So there's a lot of stories about, people coming back from their accidents, or warning people of an upcoming accident, or mysterious factory whistles blowing, all kinds of things. But my favorite ghost stories are about ghost towns. So not necessarily towns that are haunted, but that no longer exist. So they were populated towns, but then once that industry left, the towns disappeared. And so I want to read you one of these ghost towns of Pickens County, and the title is the exact title that's in the book, A Wonderland of a Place Called Alice. So I'll read it really quick here. The Valley of Alice in southern Pickens County is a land of strange shadows, dark places, eerie winds, and thunder that echoes in the mysterious sounds among these mountains. Grandmothers frighten children with ghost stories of nearby Salem. Along this valley are found the oldest mountains in the world, including the volcano-shaped Sharp Mountain, which is which is that mountain in the picture. In this valley, the best remembered feature is the waterfalls, as they can extend for more than a mile. Their noise can be heard for long distance. One mill is still standing. Within a few yards of it, there are a number of curious ruins, including an 1850s gold mine. A mile-long channel, much of which can still be seen, brought water around the mountain for more than a mile and a half to power the Harmony Mills, built by English-born Atherton brothers in 1882. The name Alice came from Tom Atherton's wife. The mills were damaged by flood and burned in 1897. The post office closed in 1909, and the community vanished. So, pretty interesting portrayal on that. All right, so my last book is a personal book from my own collection. It's called The Headwaters County, Tioga County. Tioga County, Pennsylvania is where I'm from, where I grew up. And my mom gave this book to me so I would always know where I came from. I guess she kind of knew that I wasn't going to stick around and move around. So she always wanted me to know, my roots. And so this book is actually geared towards children. And this is easy to find. It's on the Internet Archive, so it's digital. So if you're interested, you can read the whole thing. And I also love this book because it has references. It has a full bibliography and an appendix. So it's it's a really cool book. Lots of ghost towns in my home county as well. Coal industry was the booming industry. And I remember growing up, in the mountains where there's no towns anymore. There used to be these towns. And what is left from these towns are, number one, wells, and number two, cemeteries. So really spooky place, and definitely the fodder for being scared as a young person. But I'm going to end on one little ghost story that you can take and do some more research with if you want to. But in the book here, it's got photographs. So the photograph on the screen is what is in the book. The town I grew up in is Mansfield, and there's a university there built, I think, in 1866 or something. And North Hall, which is on the left of the screen, under construction here in 1874. It was built as a women's dormitory and was a women's dormitory for 100 years up until 1970, and then the building became, hard to live in. They didn't have the money to restore it. So for 20 years, it sat empty and deteriorated, basically. So it basically looked like a haunted place. And so in those 20 years, I think all of these ghost stories were developed. And the library actually has their very own page about this famous ghost. Her name is Sarah. And there's all kinds of different renditions that she threw herself down the stairwell because the romance didn't go right, or, she was ill and had to be transported somewhere else and died. So lots of different things. They've done these paranormal investigations. They've written academic articles. They've searched in the archives for deaths during the university time. So it's really taken on this life of its own. And I'm going to leave it there with you, and I'm going to put the link in the chat box, so if you want to watch the videos and read the stories for yourself, you can. And that is it for me.
Kelly, that was so interesting and so good. If you don't mind, I want to make sure everyone else can ask questions. I've got um, one other question. Do you mind putting the name of that book, the one you held, in the chat?
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to try to see if I can get the Internet Archive link in the chat so people can look at it. But my other question is, when you're talking about the local history books that you and James utilize to do special projects research, are there certain publishers that y'all tend to see? Because I know that I don't know, like local communities, if they have specific publishers that often work with them to make these books.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I haven't seen one type of publisher. They all seem to be um, like local presses, I guess you could say. Like for the Pickens County, it was
That
Wallace.
entire collection, I think, is published by Heritage Books. Many states in the Southeast, especially, have one of those books for every county. I know Alabama is the only state, I think, that has every single county has a heritage book. And so if you go to heritagebooks.com or .org or something like that, we have so many of those in the Georgia room when I worked at the Cobb County Library.
Yeah, is it like, and is another one like Arcadia Publishing too? I think they do some of that.
Yeah.
The Images of America, all those books that have one on each county, that's Arcadia, I think.
Yeah, interesting. Well, this was so cool. Thank you, Kelly. We got a chance to kind of learn more about you as well.
Yeah, I rushed through it, but thanks.
Oh, good. And again, it's because of that. I'm so sorry about the timing. I just want to also mention that we have James Newberry with us. So he and Kelly are the special projects team, a mighty team of two. They get a ton done. So they get so much done, and they work with these, with our communities in our Northwest Georgia region. So that's really, really exciting. Thank you so much, Kelly, for giving us insight into your work and into your story. And thank you for those little spooky tidbits. I have my pumpkin spice flavored coffee today. So I am very much ready for Halloween. And oh, look, Kelly's mug. I love it. Very, very good. So I think next, let's see. Elaine, do you mind going next? And then we'll have Maggie, or is that okay with you?
No, that's fine. That's fine. And hopefully I can share my screen for my PowerPoint. So I just hit
you should be able to. I'm sorry for the complications. It was just a lot going on for me in Zoom today. We weren't buddies today.
Okay, so if I hit share screen, and
and then it should be like a tab that is what you were see your presentation, and then you can click on that.
Okay.
And if you haven't recently clicked on your presentation, sometimes it doesn't come up as one of the options.
Okay. If let's see. You see it?
I don't see it yet.
Okay, let me go back.
Do you have two displays, two screens up, multiple screens?
Hold on, let me.
Because there's an option to switch displays.
It's on my desktop.
And if it's too stressful, you can just send it to me, and then I can show it while you present, and then we'll just have Maggie present first. If we need to do that, it's totally fine.
Okay, let me just try one more thing.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just not giving me the option. It's on my desktop.
Do you already have the PowerPoint open?
I have it now, but let me go back.
While you're working on that,
I'll
we
send it to you.
that's fine. So we'll have Maggie present, and then we'll be all ready for you right when Maggie's done. So that'll work out perfectly. So Maggie, would you like to go ahead?
Okay. First of all, I'm very blue today because it's overcast and the dining room window is right here. So I've got a spooky vibe going on. I thought it was
You are kind
appropriate.
of blue, actually.
I don't know. I mean, nobody else is blue. Are y'all sitting by windows? I don't know. It's just me, I guess. So, I live in Mableton, which is in South Cobb County. I don't know if everybody knows where Mableton is.
I do.
Do you see that?
Yes.
Is it?
So yeah, we just
There.
yes.
You see it?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so I'm really interested in cemeteries, especially hidden cemeteries. And the Mabel family cemetery is not necessarily hidden, but it is on the Mabel house property. And you only really go to see the cemetery if you know it's there. And the Strickland and Peak Cemetery is truly hidden, and I find it fascinating. So I did a little genealogy and background work on the Strickland and Peak families. And the Mabel family has had tons of genealogy done on them already. They're the family who Mableton is named after. So let's just get started. First of all, that's where Mableton is, in case anybody doesn't really know. There's no direct way to get to or from Mableton from anywhere else in Cobb County. It takes me 45 minutes to get to work every day. It's just kind of out of the way. There's no highways directly to it. So just to give you a little context, that's where Mableton is located, down here in very South Cobb County. I'm going to start with Strickland and Peak Cemetery. So Veterans Memorial Highway runs through Mableton and Austell. It used to be called Bankhead Highway because it leads you directly to the Bankhead area of Atlanta if you go southeast. Southeast. Okay, so Strickland and Peak Cemetery is really fascinating to me because it is hidden inside a shopping center. So this is Hawthorne Plaza. And this is the little cemetery. You can see like little rows of people in there. And a lot of genealogy cemetery sites have this marked as the cemetery, and that's not right. I don't know what that is, but this is definitely the cemetery. So starting with the Strickland Cemetery was established in 1853. You can see up here. It is on land that was once belonged to Reverend Simeon Strickland. He was a Methodist circuit rider. The land was sold to a developer, and this Hawthorne Plaza, it wasn't built until 1969. So in 1969, actually, when they built it around here, it was just the Strickland Cemetery in this area, the Strickland family. And the Peak Family Cemetery was located somewhere here in the parking lot. Because the description from the first 100 years, written by Sarah Temple Blackman, Sarah Gober. Our last name is Gober Temple. I can't get her name straight. She has like 4 names.
Sarah Blackwell Goby Temple.
Thank you very much. I've always gotten that mixed up. So she wrote that book, and the Peak Cemetery is a short distance from the highway, which they were referring to, Bankhead Highway. And this was written in 1936, by the way, from which a road runs between this and the Strickland burying ground. So if the Strickland burying ground was here, and it was a short ways off of the highway, there must have been a road running about right here. And the Peak Cemeteries and the Strickland Cemeteries were combined into one cemetery when Hawthorne Plaza was built, so that the Peak Cemetery would not be covered by the parking lot. And the Peak Cemetery had many discernible graves, but no markers. So once they got moved, they were marked as unidentified. So you see in this raised part right here, and then these two are the Strickland family. This is Thomas Strickland, Simeon Strickland, and his wife Matilda. And then past that, which is locked now, I used to be able, the first time I found this place, I could actually walk in and look at the gravesite, at the stones. So these are pictures I got offline because you can't actually walk in there anymore. It was locked when I went by the other day. There are 5 unidentified graves, and then 1 identified as David Peak from the Peak family. So I'm assuming these unidentified ones are from the Peak Cemetery when it got moved over to the Strickland Cemetery. And it's just fascinating to me. This is recorded in 1936 from Garrett's Necrology, I think. The headstones and what they say, the dates of birth and death and everything. I just thought that was cool. I searched for the Peak family and there was nothing like this for the Peak family. So it was hard to find anything for them. I did want to show the 1850 census because the cemetery was established in 1853. Well, the 1850 census shows Simeon Strickland as a farmer in Cobb County, and that was known as, the Mableton area was the Cox's district. So you can see his wife and his children. And then down here, William Bates, Matilda's maiden name was Bates, so he's the same age as Simeon. I'm pretty sure that's probably Matilda's brother. And I did find a death index for Matthias Bates. He was Matilda Bates's father. He died in 1847. So therefore, that has to be his brother because it's 3 years later. It has to be Matilda's brother because it's 3 years later. So it says here on the tax digest, Simeon Strickland, 440, I'm sorry guys. 441 acres. I can't read this name, but right here it says Simeon Strickland, administrator of Matthias Bates, deceased. So he now owns Matthias Bates' land, or the land is in his name. I just thought that was interesting because it proved the land of the Stricklands, the Cox's district, was where Hawthorne Plaza is. Next slide, I just want to point out this is where the Strickland and Peak Cemetery is. Oh, I keep doing that, I'm sorry. This is where the Strickland and Peak Cemetery is. This would be your old, this is Veterans Memorial, so it used to be Bankhead Highway. And this is the historic district of Mableton, the original Mableton from the 1800s. There is a Peak Street that intersects here with Mabel Street, and I have not found any definite connection between the Peak family and this Peak here, but I have found that Peak is spelled differently everywhere you look, P-E-A-K or P-E-E-K, so it could be. And I just wanted to point out that this is a railroad right here. And right here where it crosses over the railroad, this Mableton train depot was built right around here in this corner, I think right there. And trains were very essential to Mableton, especially when it was first developed in the early mid-1800s up through, like I said, it was constructed in 1881. So trains were very important to the building of Mableton and what brought people to this community. So next I want to bring up the Mabel House, which is on Floyd Road in Mableton. No, you can't see Floyd Road there. But so the Mabel House, this is Robert Mabel. He was born in 1801, I think. Let me check my notes. He was born in 1803. His family immigrated over from Scotland in 1820 when Robert Mabel was 18 years old. So the first instance of Robert Mabel being in the census, which I will show you in a second, is in that I found where the family names are listed was 1850 census. I'll show you that in just a second. And it said that he came down to Georgia from the New York area in 1821, like immediately after they moved here. The Mabel House Barnes Amphitheater, I just thought this was interesting. Did you know that Roy Barnes was from the Mableton area? So that's named after him. I had to put that together. I couldn't find any definite documentation on that, but it could just be the Barnes family. Maybe it's not named after Roy Barnes, but the Barnes family. I thought that was interesting. The Mabel House, I'm sorry?
In our archives collection, we have some Mabel House oral histories, right?
They're in my office, yes, because they have not been transcribed or digitized or anything, and they're on my to-do list. But I was looking through them yesterday. I was like, oh, I didn't even put that together until yesterday.
And Maggie, I'm so sorry to have to rush you. Nothing is working for me today. I think our meeting is going to end automatically in like 3 minutes.
Oh no.
I know. I'm so sorry. This is not working the way I wanted it to today. But I wanted to see if I wanted to make sure you got a chance to tell us anything that was like, I don't know if you had something you really wanted to get in. So I'm sorry.
Oh no, those are just pictures of the Mabel House and slaves and family members cemetery there. This is where I found him on the census. And this is the railroad that runs through Mableton, and this was all on Robert Mabel's land. And there's a ghost train story that has to do with it, but that's it. So,
so the ghost train story, do you know anything about that?
The ghost train, it did not have an exact location. And like I showed you, the railroad runs all the way through here. But supposedly if you and a friend go out to, stop share. Supposedly if you and at least one other person go out to stand on either side of the railroad, one on one side, one on the other, a ghost train, which is invisible and you cannot hear it, will go through at exactly 3:30 a.m. and the person across the tracks from you will be invisible because the ghost train is like going through between you. But you can catch little glimpses of the person standing there as between the boxcars and stuff. So I've never tried it, but my husband and I are thinking about doing that this weekend.
Oh my, well, you have to tell us if you see anything disturbing.
Like I said, trains were a very important part of Mableton, so now there's ghost trains.
Interesting. Well, that's really cool. So if y'all haven't maybe been to Mableton, so it's just like the southern part of Cobb County, right? I think it's kind of like below where I live.
It's like the furthest point south of Cobb County before you get to Fulton County. We're 12 miles from downtown Atlanta.
Oh, okay. Wow. Fascinating. So we were talking about, so we've kind of run the gamut here with places in Cobb County, and I already talked to Elaine via email. I'm so sorry that we're going to move Elaine's presentation to a different week, so that way, because she's got an incredible story from the Roswell's collection. Elaine is the archivist at the Roswell Historical Society. So she's got a really, really interesting story she's going to share this. So we want to make sure we have enough time for that. So anyway, I am so sorry everybody for all of the quirks today. It was not at all what I planned. Usually Zoom is perfect. So anyway, but we made it. We made it through. So thank you so much to our presenters, and thank you all for your patience and bearing with me. So anyway, I hope everyone has a wonderful and safe Halloween. I know it may look different this year, but we press on. All right. Well, thank y'all so much for coming today.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you later.